In the Realms of Mediumship by Chico Francisco Candido Javier and inspired by the Spirit Andre Luis. Chapter 1. Studying Mediumship. Undoubtedly, agreed Assistant Aulus, mediumship is one of the most intriguing issues in the world today. Human beings are approaching the era of the spirit under the light of the cosmic religion of love and wisdom, and they will certainly need assistance in order to understand it. At Minister Clarencio's request, this instructor, with his amiable and noble countenance, had just welcomed us for a brief course on mediumistic science. Aulus specialized in activities of this nature and had dedicated many selfless years to them. Thus, out of all the relationships of Minister Clarencio, our sponsor and advisor, he was one of the most competent instructors on the topic. Aulus had welcomed us affably and kindly. As he spoke about the questions afflicting humankind, he fixed his arm and lucid gaze on us, not only with the intent of an older brother, but also with the affection of a tender father. Hilario and I could hardly disguise our admiration. It was a privilege to hear him discuss the topic that had brought us to him. He was a combination of a rich core of knowledge and the deepest sentiment of love. We were delighted as we listened to him talk about human needs with the warmth of a benevolent and wise doctor, who becomes an ordinary nurse for the sheer joy of helping and saving others. Aulus had been interested in mediumistic experiments since 1779, when he had known Mesmer in Paris while studying the celebrated propositions introduced to the public by the famous magnetizer. He had reincarnated again at the beginning of the 19th century and witnessed firsthand the accomplishments of Allan Kardec in the codification of Spiritism. He was close to Cahagnier Balzac, Théophile Gautier, and Victor Hugo, ending his days in France after several decades dedicated to mediumship and magnetism in the scientific molds of Europe. In the spirit world, he had proceeded along the same lines, observing and working in his educational apostolate. Having dedicated himself for over 30 years to the task of spiritualization in Brazil, Aulus commented optimistically on the hopes of this new arena of action as he shared with us his exquisite trove of memories and experiences. We were so enthralled as we listened to him that we could barely respond to his questions. Yes, we are familiar with some aspects of spirit interchange, I respectfully replied at a given moment. Our desire, however, is to get a broader idea of the subject as simply as possible. On other occasions, we made a cursory study of a few phenomena such as psychography, the reception of written spirit messages through a medium, incorporation, mediumistic spirit communication, and materialization, but our study has been quite limited in light of the multiple services with which mediumship is endowed. Our host kindly assented to enlightening us. He was working in several departments and would lavish on us what he humbly considered as a few notes. To start with, Aulus invited us to listen to a friend who was going to speak about mediumship to a small group of incarnate and discarnate students, and whose words he considered opportune and valuable. He didn't have to make his kindly offer twice, and with no time to lose, we quickly followed him. In a large hall at the Ministry of Communications, we were introduced to instructor Alberio, who was about to start his lecture. We sat down among dozens of others in attentive and silent expectation. As with so many other instructors whom I knew, Alberio approached the lectern with simplicity, as if he were merely a brother conversing with us in a fraternal manner. My friends, he said with assurance, in continuation of our previous studies, we need to consider the fact that the mind is the basis for all mediumistic phenomena. We realize that the universe, which extends into the infinite with millions and millions of suns, is the externalization of divine thought, whose essence we share in our condition of conscious rays of the eternal wisdom within the limitations of spiritual evolution. From the superstructure of the heavenly bodies to the infrastructure of the subatomic world, everything is immersed in the living substance of the mind of God, just as fish and aquatic plants are immersed in the immense ocean. As children of the Creator, we have inherited from Him the faculty of creating, developing, nurturing, and transforming. Naturally circumscribed within the conceptual dimensions in which we find ourselves, and in spite of the insignificance of our position when compared to the glory of the spirits who have already reached the angelic state, we can radiate the active energy of our own thoughts, thereby establishing around our own individuality the psychic atmosphere that is particular to each one of us. Each world possesses its own electromagnetic field tensor at the level of the gravitational force in which it is balanced. Similarly, each soul is enveloped within the sphere of the living forces that emerge from its mental breath, within the circle of individuals it is drawn to according to its need either to make adjustments or to grow spiritually towards immortality. Each planet revolves within the orbit assigned to it by the laws of equilibrium, but without exceeding its own lines of gravitation, just as each consciousness evolves in the spiritual group to whose activities it has subordained itself. So, we comprise a vast group of intellects that are attuned to the same vibratory pattern of perception. We are part of a whole, made up of billions of beings that form, so to speak, earthly humankind. Thus, as only a humble family in the infinite concert of cosmic life, in which each world harbors only one specific family of universal humanity, we know for the time being merely those expressions of life that most closely speak to us, limited as we are to the degree of knowledge we have acquired so far. Depending on our fellow beings on our trajectory towards the evolutionary vanguard, we act and react upon one another, just as the worlds that move through space are influenced by the heavenly bodies that surround them, by means of the mental energy in which we constantly renew ourselves, creating, feeding, and destroying forms and situations, landscapes and things, in the structuring of our own destinies. Our mind is thus a nucleus of intelligent forces that generates a subtle plasma, which, because we are constantly emitting it, offers objective resources to the images of our imagination under the command of our own designs. The idea is a being, organized by our spirit, to which thought gives form and upon which our will impresses movement and direction. Our very existence is a result of the sum of our ideas. The lecturer took a brief pause that no one dared to interrupt, and then proceeded. As is easy to deduce, all living beings breathe within the dynamic psychic wavelength that is peculiar to them, within the dimensions that are characteristic of them, or within the frequency that is proper for them. This psychic process is independent of the central nervous system, because, since it flows from the mind, it is the process that conditions all the phenomena of organic life. Thus, examining the soul's characteristics as faculties of communication between spirits on whatever plane they may be, we cannot lose sight of the agent's or receiver's mental world, since, in any mediumistic situation, the receiver's intelligence is subject to the possibilities and thought nuances in which it lives. The sender's intelligence is likewise subject to the limits and interpretations of the thoughts it is capable of producing. Discarnate primitives, communicating with learned incarnates, will not be able to offer them any more information than the banal subjects concerning their experiences as primitives. Conversely, when communicating with primitives still attached to their primitive habitat, learned discarnates will not be able to offer them their immediate assistance, except in a very narrow circle in which their mental interests are embedded, such as helping them with a herd of cattle or in curing an illness of the material body. That is why primitives would not feel comfortable in the company of learned persons, and learned persons, in turn, would not keep company with primitives for lack of that almost imponderable nourishment which we would classify as compensatory vibrations. It is a law that our greatest joys result from contact with those who understand us and exchange with us mental values similar to our own, just as trees offer a greater coefficient of production if situated among others of the same species with which they exchange their germinating principles. In mediumship, therefore, we cannot overlook the issue of attunement. We attract spirits who are attuned to us as much as we are attuned to them, and, if it is true that each of us can only give according to what he or she has, it is unquestionable that each one receives according to what he or she gives. Since the mind is the basis for all mediumistic manifestations, in whatever ways they are expressed, it is crucial that we enrich our thought with moral and cultural treasures, because they are the only treasures that make it possible to fixate the light that descends upon us from the highest realms through the spirits of wisdom and love who oversee our lives. Those who have compared our mental world to a mirror are right. We reflect the images that surround us, and we send others the images we create. Since we cannot escape the imperative of attraction, we can only manifest clarity and beauty if we instill clarity and beauty in the mirror of our inner life. Depending on their nature, our mental reflections either favor our stagnation or they propel us on a journey forward, for each human individual lives in the heaven or hell that he or she has made for him or herself in the innermost recesses of the heart and mind, independently of the physical body. If we look at life in its glorious eternity, death only amounts to a transition between two types of the same experience in the indestructible now. We can see that mediumship has existed everywhere in the history of humankind. Holy missions and destructive wars, noble deeds, and evil obsessions begin in the reflections of the individual or collective mind, combined with the sublime or degrading forces of the thoughts that nurture them. Therefore, let us cultivate our education to perfect ourselves each and every day. We are all mediums in the lines of work in which we are situated. Psychic strength at this or that level of expression is peculiar to all, but there is no mediumistic improvement without purification of the individual. It is counterproductive to intensify the movement of energy without controlling its impulses. It is dangerous to possess something without knowing how to use it. The mirror buried in the mud cannot reflect the splendor of the sun. A riled lake cannot reflect the image of the star situated in the infinite. Let us raise our standard of knowledge through well-conducted study. Let us purify the quality of our emotions by continuously exercising the higher virtues if we want to receive messages from great souls. Mediumship on its own is not enough. We have to know what type of mental wavelength we are assimilating in order to recognize the quality of our work and evaluate our direction. Alberio continued with his invaluable comments and later responded to the hard questions asked by several students. On my part, I had collected extensive material to ponder, and for that reason, together with Hilario, I said goodbye to our instructors with a few words of gratitude. Aulus promised to meet with us again on the following day.